a little while since we did the last episode of 10 things you probably didn't know about Black Ops 4, so figured why not, let's jump into another one, because there's a couple of different things I want to discuss in this video that may catch you off guard, and especially with recent additions and updates to the game, could be rather helpful given the right situations. So today we're going to break down 10 things you probably didn't know about Black Ops 4, or rather 10 more things. That said, let's jump right into it. The first one right off the bat is one that deals with a Blackout, and if you've played Blackout since the very beginning, you probably remember that big rush to get the Annihilator, to end up unlocking Seraph as a character before you ended up having them all unlocked by default, and it only became a uniform challenge. The Annihilator was a weapon that was absolutely powerful. It was 2-shot at most engagements from what I remember, and then could also be a 1-shot, especially to the head. But you couldn't get any ammo for it. Except now there is a recent update to Blackout that allows us to use operator mods, and well, the Mozu pretty much now can be that if you end up finding the Mozu operator mod in Blackout. Shout out to my good friends Carnage Yankee and Carnage Saw for the find, and of course the footage you're watching in the background. But if you want a guaranteed 1-shot to the head, that's where it can be absolutely fantastic. And the great part is that it does not matter what level armor the player has, even if level 3, the Mozu operator mod, should you be lucky enough to find it, will shred through even level 3 armor in 1 shot with a headshot. So you'll instantly down or kill, depending on if you're playing solos, duos, or quads. You'll end up killing or downing that player instantly with only 1 shot out of that Mozu. Plus, the beautiful part again of the Mozu, as compared to say the Annihilator, is that that pistol actually has the ability to end up picking up ammo. You can end up replenishing the ammo and pretty much using it all game. And while it probably doesn't have the range of it, you could theoretically snipe quite a few people, so long as you're accurate on the head. Number 2 on this list deals a little bit with an Easter egg, a smaller one at that, but one that's a cool callback in any of the modes, so long as you have it equipped. That dealing with the MOG-12 newest police mastercraft. The Enforcer variant of this ends up showcasing a badge which will light up as you end up progressing through those kills, but also the cool part about that badge is not that it just lights up, but if you take a look at it and really examine it, it actually is a reference to Shadows of Evil. The badge ends up saying that it is Morgue City, which is that city in Shadows of Evil that the entire events take place. The fictional city that we thought all the way back when from the promotional material was Chicago, but Morgue City in this zombies reference finds a way to come back in to Black Ops 4. Number 3 on the list is another little Easter egg that is another callback to another game in the Black Ops franchise. That being one of my favorite emotes just because I think it's hilarious looking, the Dancing Shoes emotes. It plays some pretty funky music, you may notice, if you have that emote equipped or at all available to you from the last operation. Now, this actually isn't the first time that we've heard this song, and it may have sounded familiar from the very beginning for you guys, but for those that don't know where it's actually from the map Knockout from Black Ops 3, one of the DLC maps over from that content season, in which was a lush little vista on the cliffside that featured some great foliage, some Japanese architecture, and then in the one building inside the seeming castle was actually a little bit of a club or DJing room. It wasn't anything that was absolutely massive like its own little compound, but it was a little side room that played that same music that you hear with the Dancing Shoes emote. So a fun little one, no doubt, but an interesting little origin story to that one as well. Number 4 on the list deals a little bit with kill confirmed in particular. This is actually something that carried over from Black Ops 3, but is now something we see again in Black Ops 4, that the specialists actually depend what kind of tag will drop. If you end up taking a look at in theater mode, or even just looking at it before you pick them up in the game itself, you may notice there are some icons in there, a lot of them corresponding with animals or whatever they may be. But that actually is the specific specialist icon that was the character that died. It hasn't really been publicized all that much, but each specialist ends up having a specific almost call sign or avatar, may be a better terminology for it, but that's something that from development to reveal and up until about E3, we ended up seeing some slight mentions of it, and then it's also actually included with these specialist patches, but outside of that, not so much. So you may not actually see these in-game really ever, but a fun little fact is that depending on what specialist ends up dying and dropping tags, that specialist icon will actually be on the tag in Kill Confirmed. And talking about specialists, let's take a look at a little bit of an Easter egg regarding one specialist in particular, that being the newest one, Outrider. In the roadmap for Operation Grand Heist, we end up seeing that the new specialist of Outrider is laid out right there in front of us with the operational details for an upcoming Redacted event, some of the things that we saw changes already in Blackout, and so on and so forth. But if you end up looking at the fine prints along the right-hand side of the specialist's little promotional imagery, we end up seeing actually coordinates that being of 22.9068 south and 43.1729 west. This actually takes you to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And if you know anything about Alessandra Castillo or Outrider's backstory, that's actually just outside of where she was initially from. Technically, you could say it's still the larger majority of where she's from, but not exactly as specific. It's not the exact coordinates of a Rocinha favela, but it's still technically grouped in with Rio de Janeiro. So we end up seeing right there in the promotional artwork a little tie-in to the original backstory of Alessandra Castillo or Outrider from Black Ops 3. Next up, let's talk a little bit about a blackout tip that may actually, in fact, save your life. It's a very situational one and one that is seemingly very weird, which is why we want to include it in the things you probably didn't know about Black Ops 4 and Blackout in particular. But that said, if you end up having any sort of situation where you're driving across a road, you may have come into contact with that time where an enemy had placed trip mines and made a mesh mine wire that would blow you up as you go by. That's obviously something you don't like to see, but is there any way to counter that? There's actually one very specific way to do that. If you end up having reinforced as well as the armored truck, you can actually drive through this and it won't instantaneously end your game, but instead it will damage the truck and damage your armor, but not do so much physical damage to you and your character. So theoretically, you could drive through that and still make it to safety, repair your armor, and take out the people that placed those mines, but it's something that, again, very situational, but could also save your life if you have reinforced and you need to go across a very specific bridge in a pinch situation. Number 7 is an equally just as strange encounter that you probably may never come across, but if the rare occasion arises, you can know exactly what to do here. If you stealthily want to be a ninja and take out somebody while they're least expecting it and they may or may not be in a helicopter, if you end up having the ability to not just jump down, because if you're high enough, it will end up opening your parachute to which you can't do it, but if you end up jumping down over top of a helicopter, you end up actually having the opportunity to holding square or X on console and actually entering that helicopter of the enemy. While it is a very ballsy play, because if you don't have mobility to negate any fall damage, if you miss, well, you're either downed or dead, but if you pull it off, it might just be one of the coolest things you could possibly do in Black Ops 4 to secure a kill. Number 8, we've mentioned this in passing, but it's a quick little thing you may not have known about Black Ops 4 and Blackout in particular, about a new recent update to actually swapping attachments. If you end up finding a golden tactical weapon in which you already have the weapon of your choice, say you end up finding a tactical auger or something like that, but you have a KN that you really want to use, but you'd like those attachments, you can actually end up equipping all of that a lot quicker than you previously could. Beforehand, you'd end up having to pick up the tactical auger, end up stripping it of its attachments while dropping it, and then picking up your KN again, and then attaching them all one by one. It's a lot simpler this time around as of a recent update, because with a new quality of life feature, you can end up picking up but also swapping attachments at the same time. So all you have to do is pick up that theoretical auger or whatever the tactical weapon is that you have already, and then hold triangle or Y over top of your weapon that you dropped that you want the attachments on, and it will automatically put them all on there. It's certainly something that saves a few seconds of looting, and whether or not you're in close quarters with another player, it's something that can definitely give you the upper edge, and a few seconds to save could actually save your life in Blackout. The next two things to round this out are things that I swore I could have mentioned beforehand, but I went back and looked and I guess I didn't, but the first one of those being how to unbeach a boat in Blackout, because you can end up getting out of a vehicle of any sort of nature on land, so your ARAV, your armored truck, your ATV, your hot rod, or your SUV, and then get back in and move whenever. But if you end up beaching a boat to end up making a landing to storm where a team may be, that's something you can't immediately just jump back in and get back into the water unless you leave it out there. To end up unbeaching a boat or a raft, this doesn't apply obviously to the larger police boat in hot pursuit. All you have to do is slide into the nose of the raft and it'll bounce back, and it might take 1, maybe 2 tries to do this, but if you end up keeping at it, it'll eventually go right back into the water. And the final thing to mention in terms of things you may not have known about, again in Blackout, comes down to the water itself, because believe it or not, there's actually current with the rivers. You can end up going with or against the current, and it will actually determine the speed at which you swim, or you can end up just sitting there idle and the water can carry you away. While it won't be too fast, you can end up moving from point A to point B without doing absolutely anything, which is pretty nifty to think about in the terms of a dynamic world. While there's no dynamic weather or anything, the world interacts with you in that small capacity. But that said, that is 10 things you may not have known about within Black Ops 4, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anything that you take away from here out of this and say, you know what, that's actually pretty cool, I'm going to implement that into my game? Or is there anything that you would like to add to the list for, say, a follow-up video in episode 4, if you will? But whatever it is, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, MP, Blackout, zombies, and of course, cool things like this that you didn't necessarily know. If any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. Well, that said, and out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. Might as well express out. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.